Hey drummers, how's it going, and welcome to another exclusive lesson for you wonderful sponsors. This week we're going to take a look at the groove in the song Take 5, drummed by Joe Morello. It's in 5/4, it's got a nice swing to it. We're going to build it up sort of like in layers. I think it's probably the best way to go, and then we'll have a look at sort of taking some of the ideas from last week's drum feel and then converting that to a nice little 5/4 drum feel that works within the context of this particular groove. So if you like what you saw in the intro and you want to give this a crack, stick around and I'll break it down. Here we go. Alright, so as I mentioned in the video, we're going to build this up in layers. I thought it'd be best to start off with the ride pattern along with the foot and the stepped hi-hats, and then once we sort of lock that down, we get that sort of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flow going. We can then start gradually adding those little snare drum hits. We can play around the dynamics a tiny bit. I think this is the best way to go. In the past where I've taught it, this seems to work out like the cleanest or the most sort of effective way of learning this. So we'll have a crack and see how we get on. So let's have a look at the ride cymbal pattern. We might as well just chuck on the bass drum because it's quite nice to have that grounding beat 1, because that's where the bass drum's always going to be. If we look at what the right hand's doing, it's going to go 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 5. 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 5. 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 5. Alright, so I'll just play it on the hi-hat so you can hear, well, a little bit more clearly without the ride cymbal ringing away. We've got 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 5. 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 5. 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 5. Let's move that back to the ride cymbal so it sounds a bit jazzier. 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 5. 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 5. Then just start spinning up. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. 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 1. Alright, get used to that. Use that foot that you've got on beat 1 as sort of like, that's going to keep you grounded. That's like your little anchor that you can attach everything to. So once we get to that, we kind of know what's going to follow on. But it does take a little while to settle because naturally, well, I don't know, for me anyway, my body's playing. Please, can we do 4s or 6s? Please! And we've got to just sort of steer it away from that. But again, it's one of those things, if you know the tune, it really does help if you can get that. I won't do any more impressions of that, but learn the tune and it makes it a little bit easier to learn the groove to go with it as well. Right, so now we've got the right hand and the right foot sorted. Let's have a look at getting the stepped hi-hats involved. Now these, much like with many other jazz patterns, are going to be stomping away on beats 2 and 4. Obviously it's not going to have that nice recurring 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, because we're playing in 5, so we're going to get used to this little pattern. I'd say first of all just learn it with the ride cymbal pattern going, obviously nice and audible on the ride, and then take away the sound of the ride cymbal, just play your right-handed pattern on your lap and start getting used to what the feet are doing. So if we go with the ride cymbal, we've got 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 5. 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 5. 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 5. Take the same pattern. It's worth counting out loud just so we can see where the hi-hat's landing, even though we know they're landing on beats 2 and 4. But just get used to what they sound like on their own. So 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 5. 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 Let's move our right hand back up to the ride cymbal. We'll go nice and slow and then we'll crank the speed a bit. Again, when playing, I still want to maybe put in that little sort of accent you'd have on beats 2 and 4, so bang, shanga gang, boom, shanga gang, banga dang, or glang-a-lang, or whatever you want to go with. But yeah, just a little bit more of a emphasis on beats 2 and 4. Let's speed up a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Alright, obviously we're not going to be going that fast, we're playing along with the songs, it's a little bit slower than that. Right, now, that's kind of like what I would consider our foundation sorted, right? These bits aren't going to change, but what you can do with the left hand, that's kind of like your salt and pepper, that's your spice, that's where we're going to start sort of playing around a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're just going to add like the little snare groupings in sort of one by one. We've got the first snare hit we're going to look at is on the and of beat 2. I'm going to play this one quite softly, but you can obviously practice giving it a good wallop as well. So if we go nice and slow, we'll get the foundation going first of all. So we've got 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 5. 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 5. Add a snare. So you will find that because it's on the and of beat 2 and we're going 1, 2 and before we hit beat 3, that left hand is going to be landing with your ride cymbal. Okay, so we've got 1, chicks there. Okay, if you want to practice just that little bit there, it actually might be worth putting in beat 3 as well. And then carrying on the rest of the groove from there. So let's play it nice and slowly. Nice and slow. Nice and slowly. Kind of works. 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 5. 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 So again, it's worth doing that thing where you just sort of practice playing it like as a ghosted note and then with a bit more of an accent. I'm not really going to be hitting many rim shots in this because in the track itself, you know, throughout the main groove, it's kind of like got this nice pitter sort of patter sort of vibe going on underneath. So again, just practice it. There'll be a moment when you're playing it where you sort of feel where that snare drum is and you don't necessarily think about the counting, and you can just sort of think of almost what you're playing as a bit of a melody. So I'm going to count it, then I'm going to shut up, and then just start enjoying it. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 5. 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 5. Alright, so we'll call that layer 2, but the first layer with the snare drums in. Right, so the next chunk of snare drum I'm going to add to that, and this is going to be 2 hits, and it's going to be going from the and of beat 3 and landing on beat 4. So beat 3 is just a sort of a crotchet in terms of what your right hand's doing. So when we play the and of beat 3, it's going to be a lonely snare drum, and then as we land that second hit with the snare, it's going to come down with both the ride cymbal and our stepped hi-hat. So what I'll do is if I just play up to beat 4, and that's where I'm going to land that snare drum. I'm going to get this 1, 2 and 3 and 4. 1, 2 and 3 and 4. 1, 2 and 3 and 4. In fact, if we do that, we end up with like a nice little 4/4 groove. 1, 2 and 3 and 4. 1, 2 and 3 and 4. That actually sounds all right. If we go back to playing in 5, we just got to add like a little ping at the end, and that should sound like this. Getting hard to count and play at the same time. Okay, so for that one, all you're doing is just all you're doing is just tucking that snare drum in on the and of beat 3, that'll be on its own, landing the beat 4, and then a 5, before you then go back around and hit your bass drum. And I just remembered, because we've been on tour, we've got gaffer tape on the ride cymbal, which is killing the sound. See what it sounds like now. She sings nicer now. Right, so we're going to add the final 2 snare drums now, and this makes up the sort of triplet of beat 5, where we play 5 triplet. Okay, so if we were to add that to what we've got so far, can I play this slowly and count? If there's a cut, you know it went wrong the first time. So here we go. 1, 2 and 3, 4. Right, let's do it slowly. Here we go. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 triplet. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 triplet. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 triplet. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 triplet. 1. Can I go slower? 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 triplet. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 triplet. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 triplet. 1. It's like having 5 different things going on at the same time. Right hand, left foot, and mouth along with brain. That's too much. All right, but all we're doing, the way to sort of think of this is get up to beat 4 and then add right, right, left, left. That really helped me. Get that left foot in there. It's hard not to go at a sort of like medium plus tempo. It's go really slow. One of the things you'll sometimes hear Mr. Morello play is instead of doing, he might just play like 5 and then 1 as he goes back round, which will sound a bit like. You get what I mean. All right, so instead of playing 5 triplet, you play 5. And then technically the let, but you sort of almost count it as a and 1 as you go back round to the beginning. 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 3, 4, 5. And then you end up with the rhythm. The notation for this is going to be quite important. So that's what I would do. Like when you hear the opening of the song, I'm not sure exactly what the BPM is, but it's sort of like. About there, and I would just spend, like, if you're sort of trying to get, I would just spend the entire track just playing that. Ignore the solo, ignore any fills or anything like that. Just see if you can lock down with that basic groove and just sit in that. So if we break down the drum fill, so last week we did. Something along those lines. That's what we did. Now, obviously we're playing sextuplets there, and we were sort of like chucking it with more of a hip-hop groove. Where we're playing, like we'll take 5, it's kind of like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we want to take the sextuplets or 16-note triplets, and we're just going to convert them into triplets. And we're going to sort of break it down. We're going to nick 5 beats worth. Naturally, I always go for 4. 5 beats worth. And so we're going to play 5 triplets, and we're going to steal all the ideas from that previous week's drum fill, which is, so we're going to play our 6-stroke roll, which is right, left, left, right, right, left. That's 6 notes. We split into 2. We've got 1 triplet, 2 triplet. Then we've got 3 triplet, and then 4 triplet. Okay, so we've got that right, left, left, right, right, left, kick, kick, cross, kick, kick, kick. That's essentially 4 beats worth of our 5/4. And then we're going to chuck in a little right, left, left at the end. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 5 triplet. Let's just chuck that into a groove. And there you go, you've got like a nice little groove, but also a nice little feel that you can play around with in that 5/4 context. All right, so there's only one more thing to do. I'm going to pop up there. I'll play it nice and slow. We'll just sort of build up the layers. So maybe I'll just get the right hand going with the kick and the left foot, and then we'll add the first snare drum. Then on the and beat 2. Then we'll add the snare drums on beats 3, the and beat 3, and then beat 4, and then the 5 triplet right at the end, and then we'll sort of build it up from there, and then we'll chuck in that nice little fill a couple of times. All right, so I will attempt to do that nice and slow, and then medium to fast, because it's not a particularly fast song. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, drummers, there is just a quick demonstration at the end. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I hope you learnt a little bit from it. Go and check out the track if you haven't heard it. It's Take 5 by Dave Brubeck with Joe Morello on drums. Absolute banger. Good chance you're going to recognise it. And it's just one of those classic sort of jazzy numbers that you definitely want to learn. And it's a great little gateway into learning how to play in like a different time signature. So have some fun with that. Play around with the drum fill. That was just a little addition I thought would be quite fun to chuck in and just show you how you can take some of the ideas we've done in previous lessons and then just sort of, you know, play with them a little bit to make them suit whatever context you're working with currently. So once again, I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks ever so much for being sponsors, and I'll see you for the next one very, very shortly. All right, see you later. Bye.